That's probably what we'll start out with.
Awesome. Okay.
Did we have I don't think we had a phone call, did we?
Mm.
No, we did not.
Nope.
Probably because I already knew you. I might end up asking you a few of the questions I asked the last time. Just
Oh yeah, please. Not a problem.
I'm gonna run through your intro real quick to make sure I can pronounce everything correctly.
Mhm.
Circumstantial Saint is a native of Pennsylvania. Having lived all over the state, he calls himself a poet, a musician who likes to work from affirmations, duality, spirituality, social justice, and awareness. He speaks to elevate the collective consciousness through his words and stories. He has over a dozen albums, which he sees. Is that him, or did I mess up? Ah.
I do remember that happening now.
I probably did that on the post too. Oops. Oh, I definitely did. Oops. Edit post. Hello. Where are you?
Yeah, it's so weird. They
Oh. Boom.
appreciate that.
That's so funny. Season's books that reflect different ideas of darkness, depression, acceptance, and self-care. He's dropping a new album in July called I Speak to Heal, which has elements of rap, house, techno, and neo soul. He also produces all this music himself. Very nice.
Where can I find this podcast at?
Spotify.
Awesome.
I have a well. I'll send you my website.
Awesome. Okay.
Um, and you can check out my music projects too if you like.
Yeah.
And I'm actually working on a few movies too.
What?
Yeah, this I just got a deal to work on a full length 1 hour 45 World War II movie that's gonna be in theaters.
Yes. Yes. That's awesome. Yes.
If I do well enough, I get to be a part of their team for the next 8 movies they got. One of them, which includes a horror movie with one of the main guys from Saw. So I'm really
That
excited
would be
about
really dope.
That's gonna be
Thank you.
freaking dope.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait to hear about this, man.
I can't wait either. Super scary though. I've never done anything like this.
Oh yeah.
All the more for growth, though.
Right.
All right. You ready?
Mm-hmm. I'm ready.
Let me know when you're live on your end.
Yep, I'm good.
Sweet. Got really good at typing circumstantial.
You see, mine has the predictive text, so I just put CIR and it's, the rest of it fills out.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Rose, and you're listening to the Story Podcast. Today, I'm on a super awesome guest, a returning guest, actually. Circumstantial Saint is a native of Pennsylvania, having lived all over the state. He calls himself a poet, a musician who likes to work from affirmations, duality, spirituality, social justice, and awareness. He seeks to elevate the collective consciousness through his words and stories. He has over a dozen albums, which he sees as books that reflect different ideas of darkness, depression, and acceptance and self-care. He's dropping a new album in July called I Speak to Heal. That's two as in double I, which has elements of rap, house, techno, and neo soul. He produces all of his music himself. How you doing today?
I am blessed and I am feeling pretty great.
Good.
Yeah.
So it's been a while since we had you on the show. It's been a good 6 or 7 months or so.
I think it's been almost a year.
Almost a year.
Almost.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Almost a year.
Yeah, I know it flies by.
What you been up to?
Churning out music, churning out poetry, going to different poetry events and learning as I go. Yeah.
So we're kind of going to revisit some of the questions I asked you the last time just to catch everybody up to speed.
Yeah.
So where did your love for poetry, art, music really start? Where did it come from?
No one has ever really asked me that question, I don't think, besides you. Schooling, I sucked at math. I always sucked at math. Uh, for me, it's always been about English, about experience, about history, learning as much as I can every day. So poetry, I've been involved in poetry and writing poetry since about second grade. And middle school, high school, I really got into it. And I dropped out my senior year. When I dropped out, I don't want to say I gave up writing, but it was something I kind of just halted. It wasn't until 2020, jumping into civil rights and becoming an activist, that through writing speeches, I became reminded that I had a knack for poetry and speeches just weren't doing it for me. Yeah.
So if you don't mind me asking, why did you drop out?
I don't like, well, college is different, but schooling just from kindergarten to 12th grade, not to mention bullying and not really fitting in. But I just felt like I didn't fit in with the whole grand scheme of the way our public school system is ran, I guess. I just felt like I don't want to say like this is beneath me, but this just isn't my thing. I think that I've learned the most from the school of life. That's always been my teacher. Learning from other people's experiences has always been my guide to help navigate my own life.
So I say school as an institution has only existed for relatively little.
Exactly.
The only way it just blows my mind. The way that we used to learn was through our parents.
Yes.
And if you go back and look at like videos from like the 50s, the kids now, they sound like adults. They're like little adults. I go to a kid today, I don't know what they're saying.
I couldn't agree with you more on that one.
So you got into this world of activism.
Right.
What was that like for you? I'm sure that was
Mm.
a lot, especially during the years of 2020, not even COVID, but the George Floyd and all the Summer of Love and all that.
Life changing. You know, my whole path before all of my 20s, I struggled a lot and didn't do really anything with my life. Working dead end jobs, intermittently houseless throughout. I wasn't really doing anything with myself. So when 2020 came, it was a complete rerouting and redirecting of my life. And all of a sudden, everything, all these things that I was interested in and all these things I was knowledgeable on started to make sense. And to be honest, it was a precursor to Circumstantial Saint. It's probably what helped me find Circumstantial Saint within me, was realizing that I have all these um, thoughts about the world that I feel like people needed to hear, but also the things that I went through in 2020 and 2021, being involved in this movement, uh, definitely affected me in a number of different ways. And to maneuver through that, I sought to heal. I sought to do inner child work and work on myself and really understand where I am in the present and where I want to go with all the things I've learned and accomplished and figured out about myself within the past few years.
So explain that working on your inner child bit a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. So Circumstantial Saint really talks about duality and inner child work and shadow work. So with your inner child, it can be the person when you're a kid, uh, we like to color outside the lines. We like to pretend or imagine. But I think doctors have found out that you're in a hypnotic stance when you're a kid in your adolescent years, that you're imagining everything. That's how you view the world. When we go through public schooling, that one by one, bit by bit, it gets etched off.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you lose track of parts of yourself that I feel like we always need to connect to understand how we're taking things in well into our adulthood and old age. And so with inner child work, it can be it's very hard. It's very dark. It's not rainbows and unicorns, as people like to say. Oh, you're a spiritual person, you claim to be spiritual, you must be really like calm and zen. And no, it's not about that. It's about challenging yourself. It's about looking yourself in the mirror, holding yourself accountable and saying, what did I do wrong? What did I cause in the situation with other people and to myself, and how I've affected myself? I'm very open about my life. I was molested as a child. I've been raped before. So things like that have an effect on your being and how you end up growing up, how you
interact with other people.
Exactly, how you are interacting in relationships as well.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. And for example, and this is the best way I can explain inner child work to people, is like when you're in a relationship with someone, that is a direct line from the way that your parents treated you and the way that their parents treated them. And so when we talk about like generational trauma, we're soaking up all these things that are inherently in us. It's made from us, but it doesn't mean that we can't grow from that and help grow out of that, and to make sure that we're not perpetuating that to future generations.
For example, I'm kind of open about this too. My dad was a alcoholic drinker, very abusive. Mm-hmm. What I take from that is I could have done the exact same thing and gone to the bar and wallowed in my swallows. Right. and been this angry person who had all this resentment for my father. Granted, I wasn't. Thankfully, my mother didn't raise me up like that.
Right.
Nothing to my dad, to be honest. But that's the same line. It doesn't matter how you were raised up to be, because these things are like, well, my dad, you get to forget about my mother's death. Maybe I should do it too.
Right.
Maybe I should do, everyone else, especially surrounded. Not to like dump on the musicians around here, but I should drink and to partake in that. It's so easy just to fall into these traps of well, my dad did it, but you can stay rooted in yourself and say, no, I'm not going to do it because that's what my dad was like, and that's probably how I would how I would be like, and I do not want to subject myself to those things. I don't want to subject my children to those things, and I don't want to subject other people to that as well.
And then also we have to remember to not. It's about not placing blame on anyone else that contributed to how you grew up or your situation.
Right, I don't blame my dad for that.
Right,
because that's the way he grew up. That's
exactly.
That's
his line. And
that's his line.
Right.
His dad took him out for his first drink, and it was a cultural thing. Like it is. A dad takes a son out to a drink and to share a beer. That's one of the American cultural manlyisms. Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just an abuse of it.
Right.
And which my dad tended to do. But he's, I can dwell on that, or I can dwell on the fact that he's 6 years sober and he's doing a lot better now.
That's awesome.
So it's all a choice of what to dwell on.
Yes. And it also is about perception too. Right. Because what one person may see as one way, you may see a completely different thing. And it doesn't mean that one person's invalid and one person's valid. We all have our own truths. Inner child work is a matter of finding your own truth within you, while also holding yourself accountable, but not being hard on yourself at the same time. I always say all the time, give grace and be kind to yourself. First and foremost, because it's your life, you're in these shoes. People can tell you anything they want. At the end of the day, it's your life.
This harkens back to a conversation we found on the podcast before, is to define success for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let anyone tell you that you need to get this many streams, and this is in relation to musicians, but even everyday life. Don't say, because sometimes waking up is the hardest thing you can ever do. Getting out of bed, getting in the shower,
yes,
getting dressed.
Yes.
Sometimes that can be painful.
Yes.
And it's hard. And if that's all you do for today, that's okay. That's okay.
Yes.
A lot of people didn't do that.
Exactly.
And guess what? You can always make the goal of doing more next day. Mm-hmm. And just because you have a bad morning, a bad afternoon, a bad hour, doesn't mean you're gonna have a bad day.
I love talking about that and there's a saying like, did you have just a bad moment, or was it a bad moment that you milked all day?
Yeah.
I take that to heart, and I think about that all the time. If I'm like, I'm having a bad day, I rephrase it. I always stop myself and rephrase it and say, I'm having a moment, but I'm going to end today on a good note, or I'm going to find something good out of the day to think about and make sure that I had something positive today too, to balance that. And then another thing I try to be mindful of and tell people is, especially when I'm talking about Circumstantial Saint and what it stands for, is there is no good or bad, it's only experience. It's how you look at it. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at something as good, that means you understand what bad is. And that doesn't mean that bad is bad. It's just the other side of it to make you understand what is what.
Without happiness, there's no sadness. Without sadness, there's no happiness. You gotta have both to have a full life. If you never knew happiness, if you never knew sadness, you wouldn't be able to experience what happiness, what deep, you have to have the good things and you have to have the bad things to have a full experience life.
Yes.
You're going to deal with death. You're going to deal with depression. You're going to deal with anxiety. You're going to deal with rejection. You're going to deal with all of these things. Don't hide from it.
Right.
Don't try to escape it.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
I try to tell people actually lean into it.
Oh yeah,
because
for sure.
if you lean into it and you feel that emotion as you're going through it, you're not prolonging it.
And you're gonna become stronger.
Yes.
The next time you approach it, it's not gonna be as hard. It's just gonna be okay. I'm going through this. It's gonna go by, but it's gonna suck right now.
Yes.
And I'm gonna deal with this.
Yes.
The longer you don't deal with these things, the longer it's gonna deal with you.
Yep.
That's cool.
It is so true. And I try to all these little gems we're spitting are things that I've talked about in one song or throughout different songs or throughout albums. And I like to keep I'm let's say I grew up in the 90s and 2000s where we were still heavy on conceptual albums, you know, so it rubs off on me. I can't help but do that. Like I've tried to do singles and EPs and short things, but it's just not me. Like this new album is 22 tracks technically.
It's a double album.
I am actually thinking about putting it into two parts. I haven't submitted it yet. So I'm thinking about maybe breaking it into two 11 track albums and putting it out together though. But giving people a chance to like eat at it the way that they want to instead of just like just boom 22 tracks because I've done 22 23 track albums. I can't help it. I can't help it. The process is like it's just a never-ending process for me. As soon as there's no cutoff point, I make myself cut off things because I'm constantly just making new songs. I get an idea, and sometimes I'll just turn out 3-4 songs in a night because I just have these immense ideas.
Not to like harp on this, but like these songs are something that's 5 minutes long.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He's like, yeah, that's me.
I try to have some diversity. I'm not gonna lie. So like I do a lot of interludes that might be like 1 or 2 minutes. I'll have some songs that are like 2.5 minutes, but then I hear them and I'm like, wow, like this is just enough, but I need more.
Right.
So that's why I try to do 3-minute songs and it just doesn't work. But I try to go off of the way my poetry is though. So if I have like just a short poem, I'll try to make it into 2-3 minute songs. But a lot of my poems are more like stories that I'm just spitting all this stuff out. And so they end up being the 5 and 6 minute songs. But I've learned to sit in me. Like, what is Circumstantial Saint? Look, I'm the kind of person that's going to give you 5, 6, 7 minute songs sometimes, but you're going to appreciate it if you actually sit and listen.
That's another conversation to have is how to listen to music because a lot of times we just like this has been another conversation on the podcast. It's a gratification culture that we live in, and the amount of how we can't listen to a song unless in the 30 seconds that we give it, it hooks us.
Yeah. Okay, that's something that really gets under my skin. As an artist, as an all-around artist, as a creator, I've learned for myself to let that go and tune it out because I feel like there are people out there that really still do want to engage.
Oh yeah, of course.
And I want to appeal to those people. If you're that instant gratification person and you can't listen to a 22 track album, don't listen to my album. Buy one song, listen to one song. I've got tons of singles out there, you know what I mean, that I don't like. I might put, like, for example, I'm Not a Rapper, I'm a Poet is its own single, but it's on the album as well, but it's a different version than what you're going to get from that one song. So I do things to appeal to everyone, but at the same time, what you get is what you get too.
No, that's great, especially as an artist to know that this is who I am. If you don't like that, fine, that's okay. Well, it's not even like that harsh either.
And it's not in a harsh way.
It's not a harsh
right.
way. It's like, that's not harsh for me, but it's not. You can just say, "Listen, I know this is not for you, and I'm sorry that's not what it is, but I'm not gonna force myself to accommodate to you."
Nope.
And this like goes back to the defining success for yourself. Define your song your way,
right.
And service the song. So that song is not going to do what it should do for other people as it's going to do for other people. The song is going to hit certain ways. I know people who love Bruno Mars. I know people who absolutely hate Bruno Mars, and that's okay.
I've learned that, and this is what I started to realize, like Circumstantial Saint and my music is all the music that I've never heard, but I've wanted to hear from someone. So I went and started making the music that I've never heard myself. So that's what helps me sit in my own and say, I don't care if someone doesn't like this because I like it and this is what I've never heard, but it's what I want. And I know that somebody somewhere out there probably wants this or something similar. I'm cool with that.
There's 8 billion people in this world. Someone's going to like everything.
Exactly. And I get enough feedback that keeps me, I can die happy. For real.
Let's talk about I'm not a rapper, I'm a poet.
Yes. uh, that song's actually a funny one because uh, it's the second song that I freestyled kind of on accident. It wasn't like I sat down and said, we're gonna freestyle, we're gonna make a song and freestyle. I was with another amazing poet of mine, a friend of mine's named Pan, and we were getting ready to go to a poetry event, but we wanted to vibe and see if we can come up with a collab. So I'm like, let me just throw some music on and let's just vibe. Actually, I did it a cappella. I was like, let's just vibe. And she's like, I don't know. So I would spit some stuff and then I let her go. And she's just like, man, this ain't for me. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna just keep going. So when she left, I sat down and was like, wow, this is something. Like, I need to put this in something. And so I literally just made the beat right there and threw those lyrics right on top of it. Like it was boom, boom, simple as that. And sometimes it just works out that way. Like some of my songs have just been spur of the moment. And I'm just like, wow, this is something right here. And that literally is just a freestyle.
Well, let's take a listen to I'm not a rapper, I'm a poet. What do you think? You have fun?
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
I actually shot this video in Philly.
Oh, you have a video, man?
Yes.
I have. I would put it on there.
I'm so sorry. I got like 50, all on YouTube. I got like 50 some music videos. So yeah, any single I release now, there's a music video for it.
Yeah, I have Protected or Wrinkles. The other one you sent me.
They both have music videos too. Yeah.
I'll see if I can pull them up. Very much like EDM tribal.
yes, exactly. When I made the beat, I was like, this sounds like I just randomly name my beats whatever words come to me, and it's always two words, right? Matrix Underground.
Matrix Underground.
That's what I think of when I hear this beat. Like it reminded me of the Matrix. When you say tribal EDM, that's exactly what I think of too.
I like that. Oh, you laugh at
Oh yeah, YouTube, yep.
Because to me, it's all about the trend. The lack is what you need to see within you. I don't oppose
right there, yes.
because they are risks to take. When you find what is within, you still can't take the risk. So, for me, I look at music because what people don't always see is what they need to see. Right? Like people always struggle with time. And for me, it's always about what you don't feel, receive, or understand. I'm not a rapper. I'm a poet. It's all about lyricism. And when we think about when you take that pen down, something just comes over. Something that just flows. When we got this pause. I'm not a rapper.
Oh, you're adding yourself? That's cool. It's not really a music video. It's just
Oh, that song? Yeah, I never did any music videos from that album. Yeah. That album was so different from everything else I've done. But it was also like it was a joint influence between the two of us, you know? So it was different.
and that was Circumstantial Saint. I'm not a rapper. I'm a poet. What an interesting beat. It almost reminds me of like, well, I said it, while we were talking, it's tribal, EDM tribal music,
Mhm.
almost. But now I'm thinking it's Danny Phantom.
No, I'll take that. I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment. Yeah. My music is so diverse because I have such a wide range in taste. But EDM, house, club music, that's my language of love. That's how I speak in general. And literally that was the first track that ended up being for this new album. I intended my last album was called I Speak.
Yes.
So I intended for I'm not a rapper, I'm a poet to be on like the deluxe version. But when I started, that was like, all right, this is an EDM track, and I feel like I did really good with this. Let me make some more. So I had made like Rise Against the System, Fantasy, and I was like, wow, this is a different sound and direction than I Speak, and it can't be a deluxe. It needs to be its own album. So that's kind of where it started.
So how do you come up with like 16 albums and you got 12 EPs, you got so many other things going on within a year?
Yeah.
If anybody else had done that, it would have been like it's insane.
So
and you not only that, but you also run your own media company and do several other things. Yeah. How do you balance all that?
I'll sleep when I die. I mean, I'm single. I don't have kids. So, and this is like my duty. I feel like, but that is my thing. Like, I'll sleep when I die. I just want to do as much as I can while I'm on this earth, and also making up for lost time. Like, I spent a lot of time not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, and now I know exactly what I want to do and pretty much how I want to do it. It's been a wild ride, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Seriously. I love where I'm at. I like doing my best to be present because I could go tomorrow and, I have this thing where, so Tupac, over like the 7 years that he recorded music, I think he had like 1,500 songs or something like that. I want to do in 7 years 2,000. If I can hit 2,000 and break like his record or what he did by the time he passed away, by the time he was murdered, I want to top that. So for me, I have about 400 some songs that I've done within a year. So like 400 within a year, I think is making good time.
You should beat him by doing 2 collabs with Elton John. Dude, when I first saw
that's a dream right there.
I didn't know about granted Elton John has almost collaborated with anybody under the sun, but when I first saw Ghetto Gospel, I was like, what? How do you mix Elton John and Tupac? That's what an incredible lineup.
Right. I've heard of it. I've never actually heard it though.
You never heard Ghetto Gospel? It's a good song. Good song.
For real?
Yeah, for real.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Anything Elton John does is great.
That's true. That is true. No, he's a genius. Seriously. Yeah.
But when I first heard that, I was like, ain't no way Elton John went to. How did this happen? Did Tupac go to Elton John, or Elton John go to Tupac, or who orchestrated this?
You know what? Thinking about both of them, to me, it makes perfect sense.
I don't know much about Tupac, but Elton John, I could see it. It just blows my mind that
Tupac was a real softie.
Oh, was he?
Yes.
Then it makes sense.
He definitely was. And like, come on, he was an intellectual. He was from the Black Panther family. So there's a lot of, I think, things about him that mainstream tried to portray in a certain way, and play up to based off of what he portrayed at face value.
Yeah, the
But
East Coast, West Coast
right,
scenario.
and death row and all that. But if you look at it from a human standpoint or from a poetic standpoint, my goodness, he was an amazing poet, an amazing writer, an amazing philosopher, and an amazing activist as well. He was multifaceted, and he's someone that I really, really look up to as far as like what I'm doing in my life, and the fact that no one can tell me that I can't do it all if I want to do it all. There have been people that told me, you can't have your activism with Circumstantial Saint. It's not going to translate. People won't get it. But people get it. They get it more than like I try to do all this extra stuff to get them to see. And no, they pick it up just like that. They get it. So I don't have to do any of this, and I don't sugarcoat anyway, but I don't have to do any kind of sugarcoating for people to get what I am or who Circumstantial Saint
And
is.
it's not like you should have like. It's not like you should have to anyway. Because, like we said, the people who are gonna catch on to that music are gonna catch on to that music, and the people that aren't,
Right.
and that's okay.
That's okay.
And you shouldn't have anyone say, "Well, I don't get it." It was like, I'm sorry.
That's on you.
That's on you. You got to do the research to figure it out.
And I'm also one of those people where like, you can't do that. I can't. Watch me.
Watch me. Why not?
That's me, like to the fullest, big energy. Like you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove to you that I can.
And it'll come up to you and give it to you.
Yes, very much so. Yes, I'm not. I try not to be petty.
That's the healthiest petty you can ever be.
Right.
That's the best kind of petty. So you can't. Some person told me that I couldn't do something. I couldn't write movies. Here I am writing music for movies.
Right.
And some people said I'm never gonna amount to anything in life. Watch me.
That part.
And watch me.
Seriously, man, congrats, because that's big.
But I mean, that's the best petty you can be. I mean, there's also development pettiness that we won't get into. But the best sort of petty is when someone says you can't do that or you can't do that. That's not how that works. And you're wrong. And granted, sometimes they're right. But when it comes to like, you can't do it like that.
But attempting to do something is what speaks volumes in general.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Always.
There are certain ways to do things. But when someone says that you can't amount to this or you can't, that doesn't work like that or blah, 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 try it. You'll learn.
I take pride in walking outside of the lines that are made for us. I don't see it that way. And I try to tell people like there may be highways and lanes. You don't have to stay in your lane. You can forge a new path. Get off that highway and trek into the woods and create your own path. And if people don't follow that path, that's okay. You got somewhere based off of what you wanted to do.
And you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn more doing that than any way else. It's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
There wouldn't be anything new. I mean, granted, there is nothing new under the sun, but also at the same time, there's new ways of doing things all the time. There's new music coming out. There's new genres coming out. There's new everything. And when it happened, if someone just stayed in their lane.
See, and that's the thing. Like when I got started, there were people I looked up to. Like I don't know if you've heard of Londrell. He's what people compare me to nowadays because that's the big famous person that they see doing something similar to what I do. But I know that there's so many other artists out there that inspire me. But what I realize is I'm just me. I can't
be anybody else.
No, and I've stopped listening to a lot of music, especially when I'm making albums. I can't listen to other people's music because you don't want to compare. You don't want to soak up what someone else is doing. I don't want all that other stuff soaking in and kind of contaminating my juice, if that makes sense. And it's not any dig at anyone else or myself. It's just keeping my process circumstantial. Yeah. Yes. And I really like I love the other spiritual conscious music is what I would call it. But I've learned that I have my own thing. I have my own lane. And when I try to explain what I am to people, they don't get it until they hear it. And so I've learned to just give me to like just show people what I am or just say Google me because I can't really explain. And even just saying affirmations, poet, musician, it's still kind of very vague.
It's like you all sorts of ways.
Yeah, yeah. But that also, and even just my name itself, gets people very intrigued and forces them to go listen to me. And I think that was part of my goal when I came up with my name too.
So
Yeah.
you did a whole album based on I Am.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I first started out, it was all about the affirmations, right?
Right.
And I still very much do affirmations. It's just that I don't put affirmations in my titles as much anymore. The songs will be coded in affirmations, but you may not even know it. So when I said, all right, I'm going to dive down with the affirmations a bit, I want to do albums. Like I always said, I wanted to do albums, conceptual albums based off of certain chakras, based off of
Chakras?
yes,
Okay.
based off of elevating and getting to your highest self for you, whatever that may be. So I wanted to start with the root chakra, which would be I am, as far as manifesting and affirmations go. So I am is really I am is really speaking about the roots. So I actually came out with 3 versions of I am. There's the extended version and the expanded version as well. So I know. I can't help myself. But on one of the, believe it's the expanded version. I actually have a song called "The Root." But that whole album more so just talks about your core self, survival mode, the core of you, and really digging to the nuts and bolts of what makes you you before you can get anywhere else. Because right now I'm in the I speak era, which has to do with the throat and speaking your truth or knowing when to hold back and not speak your truth. Right.
It's very important, by the way.
Yes, it really is. It really is. And if you listening to this album, there are some songs where there's more production than there is lyricism. There's things where I'm giving you coded language and I'm very minimal on words so that you can pick up without me telling you what's going on. And then there's stuff where I'm very heavy on the words and I'm cussing. I'm giving it to you. I'm talking about my ex relationships. I'm talking about toxicity. I really go hard on this. But for I wanted to kind of soften things for people and give them raw stuff, but still be kind of light with it. Now I'm really digging into the mucky stuff now.
Let's take a listen to I Am Protected by Circumstantial Saint.
Yeah, this is actually, I meant to tell you that. This is off of, so I released 2 albums at the same time. This was off a House Free 2 album, which I'm going to keep it a concept. I'm going to release like House Free 3, 4, whatever. I'm going to keep it going. So it's just like either house cuts of just production with just me doing house beats combined with remixes of previous songs. So they'll essentially be remix albums. But this one I went hard on really giving it a lot of texture. When I say house free, there's a mixture between peaceful birds chirping, nature sounds, and production. So this actually came off of that, and it was the one I put 2 singles out for it. But this was, you heard I Am Protected, the one off of the original album. This is the club version too.
Gotcha.
This is actually still one of my favorite songs. The original too. I just wanted to do something different with it though.
I'm protected.
We're probably going to get into the time of asking general questions. And then we'll end out with your music video, Wrinkles. So if anybody got any questions on there?
Anybody got questions for me?
Validate fears, doubts, and let's go.
Yeah, these bases really do remind me of Danny Phantoms.
I would have never thought about that.
That was like
But
one of my favorite shows as I grew up.
I'd so take that as a compliment, man.
I would too.
Yeah.
I aspire to make songs like that.
I've actually gotten into producing stuff for other people, and somebody asked me to do a theme song for their podcast. I'm like, I don't know what to do, and they're not giving me any guidance of like what they want. So I'm gonna just start doing whatever and be like, here, like this, like this, like this.
That's what I gotta figure out something to write for my podcast. It's so hard.
It is. I'm not gonna lie, it is. Ah, yes. So I re-released this as a single. But there was some mixing I wanted for it at the end, and I added. I actually like this version better than the video version.
Oh, nice.
It's just this part here I find really.
Is the one I downloaded from YouTube the same as this one, the Wrinkles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just came to my mind. It also sounds like marching music, but like deep hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Without any snare, honestly. But I don't know why, but that last part really made me think of marching music. And marching music was a gigantic part of my youth.
See, for me, growing up, my mom was big on music. My uncle was a rapper. Music was a part of my life. And I grew up listening to Baltimore club music, Jersey club music, a lot of 90s New Jack Swing and house music. So it heavily, heavily influenced me. And that's my favorite kind of music. So that is like my core sound is that boom, 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 boom. That is, it's like infectious. Yes, exactly. That exact beat. And you'll hear it somewhere throughout a lot of my songs. Even if it's like a slow song, you still might hear some kind of iteration of it. So it's become a staple for me.
So we're gonna get a time of asking questions I like to ask everybody. First one is up. I don't know if I'm gonna play to you actually. You don't do a lot of live performances, do you?
I do. So I actually have a gig coming up this weekend, Saturday, here in Lancaster at SO Arts with Alleluia, Pan, and a couple other local Lancaster rappers. But I tried to, because last month was Pride Month and there was all these, and it was also like big on poetry. There was all these events in Philly. And so I did a lot of I went on like a mini tour twice this year. So I said that July I would wind down some. So I only have like 3 things I wanted to do this month, which was this show Saturday, and then next Saturday I have a show in Philly based off of it's geared towards mental health.
Mm.
So if you remember the song I did with J.W. Nielsen, I Am Not My Addiction.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's still one of my favorites. I'm going to be doing that one at that event.
It's great.
Yeah, so I still do events, but I'm trying to move towards actually performing my songs. I used to more so I have always just done a cappella, just spitting my lyrics, but now I want to move more into actually performing. So last month, the 30th, I performed at a drag event. I didn't dress up in drag, but so just so people know, I didn't dress up in drag. And then I love people that dress in drag. I have no issue with it, just so people know. But it was a fantastic event, and it was such a welcoming, open environment that was very encouraging for me to perform two of my songs for the first time. So that was my first time actually performing legit live, I would say.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to wait for this question for another podcast. Because the question I ask is, what's one of the funniest or worst things that ever happened to you on stage? But I don't know if you might have had one of those yet.
I'll wait to answer
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the other question is, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you have seen made, or that maybe you've made yourself within this industry, and how can we curb that for future generations?
Yeah. So one of the mistakes I made was how do I put it? I love having 100% control of everything I do. I love being able to produce my own music, write my own lyrics, uh, put everything out when I want to, go to whatever shows I want to do, and no one dictate anything that I do. And I've watched a lot of people make that mistake. And I won't say I made that mistake, but I learned what I should have done for myself, knowing the kind of person that I am and like how much I take pride in being so independent. I wish that I had started out being solely independent. And however, I do, I wouldn't change it at all because I learned a lot from the first piece that I did with Ben, and oh my God, he taught me so much just as
And you
an
gave the
artist.
numbers on those.
Exactly. I wouldn't change any of that for the world. However, like when it comes to I was big on like I always wanted to be a music journalist when I was a kid. Like when I was a little kid, that was something I always aspired to be. So
We should sit over here.
for real, but it definitely helped me to navigate my own career and say like what I want to do for myself and how like little tiny bits of intricacies from like the way I want my album to be, the track listings, to the way I promote myself and how I release my singles and what are actually singles and what shouldn't be singles. All of that comes from like my experience of analyzing other people's careers before me. And so seeing what they went through with frustrations with labels, with managers, with producers, with anyone that had influence on them, and listening to how they actually felt about their music, it's usually when they say it's not really their thing or it's not their music, that they don't really care for it. I said I don't ever want that for myself. I want to be able to love all that I do and be able to go back and listen to my stuff at some point and see the significance of it, even if I'm not really in that part of my life anymore or digging that part of my life anymore. I still want to appreciate it. So everything that I do is with that in mind.
So, what's one of the best pieces of advice that you've ever been given, or that you could ever give to uprising musicians?
The best piece of advice that I would give to upcoming musicians would be just what I just told you about trying to be as independent as possible and knowing what you want as much as possible. And if you don't, you need to figure that out. Asking other people is fine, but ultimately you need to make the decisions for yourself. So I'm definitely big on
I was
that.
gonna say, there's definitely a caveat, especially if you're a musician that is starting out. You don't know a lot of what you're doing. You don't. I mean, granted, you can always self-learn. That's YouTube, TikTok. Literally has everything you could ever ask for and more. But don't let be independent in the sense that don't let other people say what you want to be.
Right. Right.
You can have other people help you achieve what you want to be.
Exactly.
That's great. Just don't let those same people influence who you want to be.
And it could be, excuse me, it could be so easy to do that when you have so many people around you telling you all these different things. And for me, I never really had that. When I first started out, I just had one other person. So it was easy for me to give constructive criticism. And if they knew better than me, they could push back and like, no, you should do this. And so I listened, you know what I mean? Because
that's great.
And that's important. And I think that gave me a good gauge to know when someone's actually being helpful and when someone is trying to like
take control.
Right. And so I felt really lucky to be able to have like someone that could walk through things with me, but I could also give constructive criticism back. And then they were also able to like let me just do my own thing. And here I am standing on my own 2 feet by myself. I have great respect for Ben and everything that he's taught me. Do you know what I mean? But like where I am and with my music is not his style.
Yeah,
we have 2 different styles.
That's another great piece of advice. Don't hold on to someone if you outgrow them.
And we talked about this from day one. I knew where I wanted to get to, and he didn't understand it. And so we had talked about how we were going to go that route of like gradually getting me into the lane, the path that I wanted to forge. And in a way that was, I don't want to say believable, but that was a natural path. Like I just didn't
sustainable, that was available, that was foreseeable, that could have worked.
Because, you know, a lot of people, you know, they'll start out under this label with this and they'll be marketed a certain way. And then when they get free from that and they're on their own, they'll do a complete left field and it completely disorients their fan base. And they kind of flop after that. I've analyzed that many times, obviously, as a music journalist, just studying all this. I'm like, I don't want that for myself. I want to make sure that I'm not necessarily alienating anyone, but I want to make sure that people see growth and that they have the opportunity to grow with me if they want to.
Yeah. So be sure you, and this goes for same things like as piano teachers or taking lessons from somebody. There's only a point where they can take you and they decide to hand you off to someone else.
Right.
Or to hand you off to yourself.
Right.
There's some people that didn't need voice lessons, like Johnny Cash is very famous that his mother took him to voice lessons and the teacher said, "You don't need no voice lessons. Don't ever touch his voice. His voice is perfect." And he's Johnny Cash. And it's also important for teachers to know to when to let go of your students.
That part. Agreed. I feel like if you're not letting someone free to fly, they're going to continue to stunt themselves and see themselves as a caged bird.
You're not being a good educator.
That part. Part of educating is still knowing that there's something new to learn every day. Like, I get a lot of flack for you're a know-it-all. You want to tell people, no, I'm still learning as I go along. I'm experiencing and giving you the opportunity to learn from my experiences, but I want to be able to have the opportunity to learn from yours. And that's part of like what I try to speak to in all of my music.
Yeah, there's definitely a fine balance between like being confident in yourself and your lived experience, and but also taking in perspective of other people. Because for some people, my advice isn't going to work for them. For some people, it is going to work for them.
Right.
But I can say this as a fact: educating has a limit. You can only educate someone so much before they have all your knowledge, and they have to be sent off somewhere else.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with that more.
With all that said, where can people find you at?
Yes. Oh, so I'm pretty accessible. I mean, I tell people now just to Google me because I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Threads. But I feel like the best way to get a really good backstory and really getting deep with who I am is subscribing to my YouTube, because I've released tons and tons of music videos. My Facebook, I'm always putting out material there, and my Bandcamp site. So my Bandcamp is the best way that you can support an independent artist like myself.
Especially on Fridays.
Yes, Bandcamp Fridays, yes, because you can get discounts on stuff, and also
all the funds go directly to the artist.
directly to me, and it's the best way to support someone like myself. You also get a lot of different treats. Like I put all of my lyrics and backstories to songs, different bits of information, pictures, clips from different performances and things on my Bandcamp site. And I also have a subscription that you can sign up to. $16 a month, you get tons of extra stuff you won't find anywhere else. So I try to give people more incentive to check out more of me. I'm not one of those artists that wants to be super accessible and you find out everything about my life. You can find that out in other bits of things in my life because I do a lot, as you know. But when it comes to being an artist, I want to make sure that there's some bit of privacy or mystery when it comes to me as an artist.
And that's a great thing because then people are always going to want more. If they don't know, I mean, like, I keep some stuff in private for myself. But especially if you're a super accessible celebrity that everyone knows everything about, kind of predictable.
And then also it leaves you highly
vulnerable.
Yes. And people will super criticize you. And I already get enough criticizing from
myself.
that is so true. But I mean, like from the movement and other activists and just in the journalism realm, and I get critiqued so much from that.
We'll have to talk about that.
Very much so. I would love to. Yeah. That with the music, I just want people to interpret the music and leave me the heck alone. Just interpret the music. You can criticize the music all you want. That's what it's for.
That is something else, is to separate the musician from the music. Absolutely.
We don't do that enough anymore.
Yeah, we don't do that enough, or separate the artwork from the artist, because an artwork can be fantastic. The artist can be absolute trash.
Also, the music and the things that are said and spoken about in the music can be a grandiose idea of what actually might have transpired.
Right, yeah. And there's so many reasons to don't think about, you got to take the song for itself.
Yeah.
You can't put it in relation to the artist, who they are now, because they were a different person when they wrote that song, and they're a different person today. And you're just getting a slice of that lifetime.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there are some songs on my album, this new album coming out, I Speak to Heal, where some people, because a lot of my songs are written about actual people or a bunch of people, and I throw it into one like kind of person, right? There are certain songs that are written about people on this album that are not me speaking about present day. It's speaking about a time period of where I was, where my mind was, where my thought process was, where I mentally, emotionally was, or where I observed someone else being at. And I want people to don't take it for a grain of salt. It may not, just let it resonate with you, but don't stick that necessarily on to me. Because now I'm trying to diversify. Like, I want to make sure that everything isn't all about me and what I've personally went through. I want people to know that I'm speaking to all of us, and this is all of our stories, not just me.
You have any questions on there that anyone asked?
No.
Well, this has been the Story Podcast. We're going to get to hear one more of Saint's songs, so stay tuned. But if you want to find out more about this podcast, go over to CoreyRosenProductions.com. That's CORYROSEN Productions.com. We got really cool stuff going on this weekend, including our songwriter studio. Did I tell you about this? So our songwriter studio is where we grab 3 or 4 other musicians in this area, and we stick them in here, and we force them very harshly to write a song within an hour. Yeah.
I want that challenge. I'm up for it.
It's on my website, CoreyRosenProductions.com. You can sign up for it.
I did see that. Okay. Yeah. Because there's a couple other things I want to sign up for too.
Including probably single and album reviews.
Yep.
Yeah, we do. So what we do with those shows is once you submit them to the website, we randomly select one. I grab another artist, and we just talk about what we think about your album. Awesome. And all the cool things, and just sharing music, and it's a wonderful time. This weekend we have one of those songwriter studios at 10 o'clock with Liam Galliano, Colin York, and Eric Diomedia. I gotta figure out how to pronounce his name because it's been so long. And then later that day, we have Ronnie on Saturn, who's a great friend of the show. Incredible new artist that's popping up out of Lancaster. I'm really excited to talk to him this next Monday. We also have another songwriter studio with Casey Walton, Liam Galliano, and Amber Swigert. I think that's how you pronounce that name. So sorry for this. I'm not a professional speaker. I guess I am.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah,
maybe
you
I
are.
am.
Yeah.
Don't doubt yourself. And then Tuesday we have Marshall Stone coming in for another podcast. Otherwise, tell us about Wrinkled.
All right. So Wrinkles is asking you, have you ever looked at somebody? Like actually looked at them, not talking about their physical appearance, but actually looking in their eyes and seeing if they're happy. Do you see yourself in that person? Are you really looking at that person for what makes them them, or are you just glancing at them at face value? Like we all have a story to tell, and there's all these things within us. And when you're just looking at someone and you're talking to them, you're not picking up on that. But I want you to see what you're seeing, who you're looking at. I want you to actually see who they are. And this is more so a request for everyone to see everyone else's humanity.
Let's take a listen. We won't be able to hear it, but cool, man. That is not where we're at.
Really look at something. Talking about the soul. I'm not talking about seeing.
It's kind of funny though, because we years ago went to drum major academy camp, and they did this exercise where we looked at somebody and I talked to them for like a minute, and then we came back, and then one of the questions was, "What was the eye color of the person you just talked to?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "Damn, you're right."
Yep. Yep. None of us really do. Like, if you're looking at someone's features, it's still not like you can look at someone's scars, but you ask how they got that scar. That's what I mean. Yeah. I actually really enjoy performing this one now because I can see people's light bulbs go off in their head. Like, oh, and this is one of those songs that I always intended to resonate with people, and that the words were there before I actually sat down and wrote this poem for quite a while, which isn't always the case for me. So this was a very unique song in the way that it came out and manifested and everything.
You ever see someone who looks trapped in their eyes, their body and demeanor see spread open wide, and they don't even themselves know they are kept behind lies, and whys, moving through life on autopilot, because society wraps them up in plastic and makes them feel they can't cry, can't fight, just lie and say you're all right. I ask how you doing, don't lie to me. Lies come and die a dozen. No one's here. You ever look at something, really look at something, look up and see the rain coming down as their fears and self-deprecating voids of misused tools overlooked because everyone wants to be brand new, yet no one wants to do the work to clean up their world. Looking inside and having inner dialogue, everyone just wants it all without understanding what.
Where's that at?
Philly.
Philly? Okay. So I didn't recognize that kind of.
Schuylkill River.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Doug.
Shit's a mess. We don't do enough digging within and preparing for the right reasons. Hell, they fall for doing the same shit they did to you, but because it's him, it's like they did okay for him. Yes, perspective is everything. You're right, within. We got a whole round of folks walking around with no sight, just working themselves to death, no confidence, blinding their worship, no good life on big 3 or 4 years with something non-saggy skin and 1.2 kids, 2.5 bathrooms, no in-house extended.
1.2 kids. Everyone wants to strive for that.
You are me. I see you. You see me. My wrinkles can't tell me lies. My eyes, they hide, but my eyes speaking open wide. You won't hear me because you choose to be blind. Now I'm trying to figure out how to break it down for you to open up your mind. Let me in. Feel me in. This world is more than the words we breathe through our skin. The sun, water, plants, our melanin. You really see me. All that is coded within. Cause out there all, and some say that's too much. And they consume too much. And I'm too much. I'm not enough. Just yet. 116, I'm detailing a picture of the grooves in this canvas with extra blues to represent the battered and abused. That rode that F train to blues. That took that turn to that 6-foot ditch too soon. That didn't see the balancing down and up. Gravity weighed on the soul too much. What the fuck is luck? Give me dirt and grit. Give me motherfucking experience.
Also, make sure this is explicit. Make sure the mark explicit on the Spotify.
Yeah. You look at it. Do you have the ability? I should have asked that again. What do you see? Is that 12-year-old boy still crying for attention? Is that 8-year-old still wishing she wasn't a goat? Even that crystal clear shade of blue. Life's fumbles lost on social cues. Ridiculing anyone who crossed you. And that smile and scent don't fool the ones who cleanse and protect theirs. Stop seeing others. See yourself. And you will cherish the wrinkles, dimples, laughs, fears, tears, passions, and lost years of others. See the seeds of discover.
Sweet.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, of course.
Yo, y'all can check out the Story Podcast via Spotify, and you can also go to the Facebook page and check it out there. Please share
The
the
best way to do that is through quarterroseproductions.com. That's where all my stuff is centralized.
Right.
Yeah.
Send me a link. I'm gonna put it in the chat too.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.